How would I describe Earth to someone who wasn't from this planet? I would say it is. It's that's one hell of a question. Have I mentioned yet tonight how much I hate these people? Well, I guess I would tell them that we are not as crazy as we seem to be. We have crazy leaders.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier. Just so long as I'm the dictator.
But we're not as crazy. When I say we, I'm talking about all humanity. I would try to point out that while humanity was one family, we had been subdivided because of race or religion or geography or philosophy. But in fact, we were just one simple species. I would say that we probably represent what can go wrong with evolution when it's just left to flourish on its own. Because if you look at what human beings have done to the planet, even though we've had ample opportunity to correct things, we haven't. So I'm afraid it wouldn't be very optimistic what I would tell this visitor from another planet. This is a country that, at its birth, claimed to be a country that believed that all people were created equal. At the very same time, it was demonstrating that it did not believe all people were created equal because of the genocide committed against the people who were already here, and the slavery perpetrated against the people who were brought here to build wealth for white people. So I would say that this country was born in hypocrisy. That the ideas in the founding documents are great ideas. It reads wonderfully, and maybe that's something to aspire to. And maybe I'm being too harsh a critic, looking back 230 years. But when it says we hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, I'll accept the men being a generic term, but I can't dicker around with the word all. When it says all men, all people are created equal, and then we buy and sell people at the beginning of this country. So it's a country that was formed in genocide and slavery, and very hypocritical or much hypocrisy. I think we've tried to go beyond that, but I would say that this country is eat up right now with consumerism or materialism or some of the wrong ideas, and also religious fundamentalism, which is another thing that's probably going to kill us. I don't know if I'm a spiritual person or not. I would counter by saying I'm a thinking person. If thought and spirit are equivalent, then okay, I'm a spiritual person, but I don't know what spiritual means. I believe in, as far as a spiritual foundation, that my life, anyone's life, is encapsulated in the moment of birth and the moment of death. That's life. There's nothing that precedes it. There's nothing that is an antecedent. It just, that moment exists. Unconsciousness or non-consciousness is the state changeable. I would say what I appreciate most about the human race is the fact that it ever occurred. That as a result of mutation, that this animal developed called a human being, and I happened to be somewhere encased in some germ that was part of that, and I've had this moment of consciousness. In other words, life is a tease. I'm allowed 70 or whatever I'm allowed in infinity, in the infinite flow of time. I'm allowed 70 years. That's nothing. So it's almost like a tease, like saying, look, this is consciousness. But I'm given very little of it. I've been goal-less. I've never been a goal-oriented individual. I've always, and I don't know how I came to this, because I was brought up my race, my gender, my location. But I've never had what I could define as a clear set of goals, something I could aspire to. Now, once I've gotten myself into a situation like parenthood, then that will produce goals for me. If when I became a parent for the first time, or the second, or the fifth, or the sixth, my goal is to give that little person that partially came from me a chance, a start, so that he or she can do whatever he or she wants to do. This is how I look at my children. and ultimately my grandchildren right now. But as far as the goal, I've never been goal-oriented, which may not necessarily be a good thing. It may not necessarily be a bad thing. I have friends who are very goal-oriented. But the only conclusion I can come to is if you are goal-oriented in a physical sense, then the goal is kind of ridiculous, because when you stop, whatever you accomplished no longer exists either. I mean, at least in your consciousness. So to be goal-oriented to me is just kind of ridiculous. And I'm not trying to be cute here, but I just think it's kind of ridiculous to be goal-oriented. I believe in the old hippie idea, let it flow. Just let it flow. Let it flow out. Let it flow in. Try to breathe. But goals, I don't think so. I don't know that people can do anything to make life in general or the environment, the mental environment, different for other people. I think that has to be done internally by every individual. In other words, it's almost like the wheel has to be reinvented with every birth. Each person hopefully can gather as that person starts to read and understand what people have gone before have concluded as truth. You study, you learn, you do your scholarship, and you try to advance yourself mentally or emotionally or physically or even, I guess, spiritually, if such a realm exists. But I think that's the best. That's the best that a person can do, is to work on the inner landscape to whatever in whatever manner you think that the inner landscape needs work. And beyond that, I don't know, because if you go beyond that, then you get into codification, you get into agendas, you get into structures, and again, if we're dealing in a temporal world, structures are kind of pointless. To me, they're just kind of pointless. The 60s to me ran from about 66 to 74, 75. And I wasn't very political during the first part. I was in shock through most of the 60s with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the assassination of John Kennedy, and ultimately the assassination of Martin Luther King and Bobby Kennedy, the attempted assassination of George Wallace. It just seemed like every time, Medgar Evers, the assassination of Malcolm X, every time you turned around,